Hey everybody, it's your pal Mike Zombie, and this week we're going to talk about Nazis at the center of the earth. Now first off, before I even get started with this, I want to extend a thank you to Asylum for getting my Pierce and I a copy of this. And now I run into that weird situation to where someone's been nice enough to extend us a courtesy copy for me to review, and I have to do an unpleasant review. This doesn't happen very often. I'm not going to shell this movie completely. It had some really great parts, but overall, I watched this movie in a weekend where I saw two other Nazi zombie films that really, and maybe that's why, the other two I watched really hit it out of the park. So I got to this one, and immediately I was trying to draw comparisons, just for the Nazi and the zombie part alone, because both movies had them, but Nazis at the Center of the Earth went above and beyond the call of, what the fuck did I just see? It starts out, as the movie fades in, back in 1945, I'm assuming, as a truck rolls up to a military location. It's very nondescript, but it's a Nazi truck, and Dr. Mengele actually gets out with some kind of box. Kind of, in a sense, looks like maybe even like a propane tank, but decorated with knobs and whistles and bells and shit like that, and says, get it on the plane. And as these soldiers are carrying it over to the plane, Allied tanks roll up, and well, apparently Mengele is such a fucking badass, he fires a Panzerfaust himself at it, because he's just not fucking around. Gets on the plane, takes off. And I'm going to make another plea. There is a lot of firing, as you would expect when Allied forces roll up onto the SS. A lot of gunfire ensues, and can we stop using the Wilhelm scream? I mean, it was a funny inside joke for a while, but now I have to hear it in everything, and you know it when you hear it, because it just jumps out. So please no more. Mengele's plane takes off, and the title rolls in, and we find out we're going to watch Nazis at the Center of the Earth. I believe this is from 2012, and this, of course, did go, I think, directly to DVD. That's not a bad thing. I'm just trying to figure out how you guys can see it. We end up at a base in Antarctica, and their function is to drill down through the ice and search for life in the form of bacteria, microorganisms. So, basically, we have a bunch of scientists searching for life on Earth, and they waste no time revealing Mengele's plane, because they take their drill in this heavy snow and ice. The drill runs real hard for about 20 seconds down into the ground. They hit something, and the girl goes, "It's something metal," which you would have no idea, but she says it's something metal. And they raise the drill, and almost 1/4 inch below where they started drilling, because she was able to reveal it simply by dusting it with her hand, was the wing of Mengele's plane, and a big swastika right there. So I'm like, wow, 20 seconds of hard drilling, and you could just dust it off with your foot? All right. Apparently they need a little bit sharper drills, or a little more PSI pushing them down. Whatever, I can let that go. So almost instantly, when they reveal the wing of Mengele's plane, Nazis show up in the snow, right behind them from out of nowhere, with crazy-looking guns, punch the guy in the face, knocking him out, and is grabbing the girl, and off they go through the snow. Back at the military base, the chief researcher is arguing with the chief doctor. I don't know who the researcher is, it doesn't matter, but the doctor is Jake Busey. You've seen Jake in quite a bit. I was kind of surprised to see Jake in this, but Jake's kind of hard to miss. And in the end, everybody at this research station, including the 5 or 6 other doctors who are the top in their field, it reminds me of a Sunny Delight commercial. You know how when it starts up, all the kids are playing, and they're all, oh man. I've talked about this before, the Sunny Delight phenomena, where every commercial tries to show a person, they try to cover every single base. They try to make sure everybody on Earth feels represented and wants to buy their product. So, of course, in the middle of Iowa, when kids are playing basketball, we have a white kid, a black kid, a Chinese kid, a Hispanic kid, and a black kid. Which is fine. I got no problem with it. But I'm noticing it more and more, especially when they're trying to sell us stuff. And I just laugh. I'm like, whatever. But it's the same thing here. In fact, they kind of look like the cast of Lost. I mean, if Hurley had been there, it'd have been the whole deal. So they're the top in their field, and they're like, well, let's all go and find these 2 people that got abducted. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying abducted because I saw. They're like, these people aren't answering. We'd better go find them. This would be my first genuine gripe at the film, is they use CGI to show their vehicle. I forget what they called it. They could have called it the shitmobile. I don't care. I think they called it the Snowcat. I don't remember. And it looks like it was rendered horribly on a computer. And for the still shots, when they're moving around or when they get out to show the top of the thing, they must be getting out of like a rusty old truck, which is fine. But when it's moving over the ice, it's very obviously just some really poor CGI. And I was pissing and moaning about some CGI tanks a few reviews ago. It was kind of on par with those. It did distract. And they follow the tracks until they end going down into some ice cave. Well, they all follow it in because these are their friends. And they get down to a portion to where it's just a drop straight down through a hole in the ice. And they can't see the end of it just by peering into it. So they're lowering someone down with a rope. And it turns out, to get to the chase, everybody goes down. And it's a slide. It's an ice slide, which looks probably to be about 200 feet long. About 200 feet down on a slide. And at the end, it's almost the entrance to Middle Earth. Now, keep in mind, they went 200 feet down or so in the Arctic. And at the end, they walk out of this cave into a giant dome. And I'm talking a dome, which would be, if you're standing on the bottom, the top of the dome, it's high enough to where jets would fly up there, like passenger jets, 747s. And inside this dome, underneath the ice, is mountains, trees, beautiful forest, lush, green, beautiful. It's like you're in the middle of, like you're out camping. And off in the distance, we see a large building. Pretty, I mean, we're talking large, almost like the Capitol building in your state. They all kind of look alike. It kind of looks like that. They're like, what the fuck? So I'm already like, ugh, come on. I mean, I can do, hey, Middle Earth thing, that's fine, but we only had to go down 200 feet to be 10,000 feet down. And the sun is shining through the top. I don't know. That bothered me, but okay. Again, I appreciate getting this copy to review, so there were more good things to watch. Well, as they walk over towards these, it's almost like an airfield, and they're going over to a hangar. The hangar is very obviously very two-dimensional, rendered on a computer. This building, the ground in front of it, everything behind. And that bothers me because they had plenty of time to go make sets, to go to warehouses and locations that could fit. And they really could have done this by walking into a large warehouse. And that would have been easy to film. Not every warehouse has a name up on both sides, and you really could have just walked in the other side, and it would look just fine. But this looked like looked like people were walking into a painting. I didn't like that. But inside, it's revealed that Jake Busey tricked them, that Mengele comes walking over with a bunch of Nazis, and I'm just calling him Jake Busey because that's who he is, and it's much easier. I watched, and this isn't a joke, I've watched 6 zombie films in the last 2 days, 2 of which were the same inner genre as this one, so I'm not going to remember anyone's name for the most part. I've got my notes. Jake Busey is revealed to be working for the Nazis. He is a Nazi, and they've struck an agreement. He will keep bringing them bodies and doctors because Mengele is transfusing flesh. This guy, his face is rotting, so we're going to take your face, or we're going to take like the skin from your back and cut it into a face and work it over. So transplantation is, the Germans at the bottom of the earth are really working hard on it and doing okay, but they need doctors to help them because it turns out there's no medical schools or programs or continuing education that will accept Dr. Mengele from the center of the earth. So his skills are pretty much what he learned up until 1945. Plus what he's learned by experimenting since. There's no modern technology involved. So he's hungering to get modern technology or just doctors who know what they're doing. Apparently, by the way, he also has a antimatter pistol because he shoots a Jewish doctor, well, because he's Jewish, and the dude turns into air pretty quickly. They explain pretty well in detail what the Nazis are doing at this base under the underground in the second Earth inside of Earth. And they're just farming Nazis pretty much. They're just changing them, making them stronger, making them impervious, they believe, but changing their skin, changing their body parts, keeping them alive. Mengele does pull his skin on his forehead back a little bit to show that he's also got some metal parts underneath the skin. He mentions that some of his bones have been replaced with steel. So while that must be incredibly heavy, and he does seem fairly spry for being his well-advanced age, he says it slowed down his aging. So he's pretty much not aging. But his skin, as we see, is blackening from time to time. And even in this film, he goes from looking like an old man to looking like a guy with black, rotten skin in about 15 minutes, which was weird. So I guess depending on how much time they spend out in the open air, outside of their base. How much sun they get, they need more. Now, the point where this lost me, and it did lose me, I had to actually pause the film, go get other people in my house who'd heard me going, what the fuck? And show them where this movie jumped the shark for me. Because like I said, I really wanted to hang on. There were some cool parts of this film, but the hoops they needed me to jump through to stay in this game with them was just, it's too much to ask of any human. There's a machine that Jake Busey, he's extracting stem cells from people's brains and their brainstem and injecting it into this machine that looks like a Cuisinart that's the size of a pool table. And on top of it is this weird propane canister looking thing that Mengele had. So we recognize that. They made it look pretty unique, and they show us. They put the stem cells in, and this machine kind of just makes a bunch of noises and shakes a little bit, and nothing happens. And Mengele just loses his shit. You said it was supposed to work. Busey, who also brought his girlfriend down to be used, she's like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, oh, shit. So after he hugs her, he knocks her out because Jake Busey forces her, when she's awake now, to have an abortion because he's going to take the stem cells from his own baby and put it in this machine. What a guy. Walks back to the machine with a syringe full of his own aborted fetus's stem cells, puts it in the machine, and it shakes a little bit like before, makes some whirring noises, but what it does is it starts to unpack itself like the fucking Hellraiser box, and parts come moving out, and it turns into a transformer. It's like Optimus Prime. It fucking stands up. It's got a torso, legs, hands, feet, arms, everything else, and it all starts to articulate, and the top canister opens. Oh, what do you know? It's Adolf Hitler's head inside a big glass jar. So we have Robo Hitler. And I'm like, for fuck's sake. All right, this movie's dumb. It's just, he walks around like a duck. Looks kind of awkward. And this is where I was like, whatever. So they decide now's the time to take over the Earth. And this base turns out to be a spaceship, rises up through the ice under the control of Hitler, and the few doctors that remain stay inside the ship and fight, end up detonating a grenade, Busey's girlfriend does, in response for taking away her baby, blows up the room that the ship's under control, crashes into the ice, Hitler comes out, and these last two people fight Adolf Hitler's RoboCop buddy. I made a list of films I thought they totally stole the ideas from to put this together. You could start with A, any Nazi film. B, any zombie film. We move on to the more specific ones. Transformers. Adolf Hitler's RoboCop body reminds me very much of a Transformer. That's how it seems to work. This giant spaceship being buried in the ice, well, that reminds me of The Thing, and it kind of looks very similar. Independence Day, where the spaceship shows up and is flying around and is kicking the shit out of every jet that it sees. Independence Day. And it ends exactly, well, the way they kill RoboCop Hitler is they distract him, hop up on his back, and fuck with the wires and shit in the back of his neck, exactly the way Deuce Bigelow ruins the giant war robot in Judge Dredd. Just crawls on his back and does it. Real easy. So there really wasn't anything. Oh, fuck, and let's not forget, I guess, Middle-earth. Can we take over Lord of the Rings? Really disappointed the way this went. Special effects themselves, and see, where they did it right was they didn't want to put a bunch of money in special makeup effects, so a lot of the Nazis were wearing gas masks for no apparent reason, which looked good and saved you money. I appreciate that. Some of the zombies, you had to see their skin get rotten. Mengele was, I guess, the prime example of this, so they did a decent job with that makeup. They do show some people with no skin whatsoever, because their skin's been harvested, and they do look a lot like Frank from Hellraiser. So I thought that was done well. Very pleasing to the eye. Whoever came up with the gas mask idea, nice work. It looked good, it looked clean, it looked spooky, and didn't cost you but probably $20 a mask. The painted backgrounds, the CGI backgrounds looked like crap. Hitler cop, whatever, really looked awful. The close-ups were some guy's face who really didn't look that much like Hitler as far as I felt, but anything that wasn't an up-close shot, he was full CGI, including a rendered face, which even looked different from, I don't know, the guy. I was really happy when I got this. I can add it to my list. I like Nazi zombie films. On the Berdinsky rating scale of buy it, borrow it, or don't bother, this would be a borrow. The acting in it was pretty good. And I will say that about this film. Most of the actors did a great job. I don't think they made much money. They're not going to get famous from this, but they did a decent job. So that is Nazis at the Center of the Earth from 2012, I believe. Check it out.